This morning, there's new vice presidential buzz surrounding Marco Rubio, the Florida senator, the overwhelming favorite of conservatives in a new CPAC straw poll. But the Romney camp is vetting its list, even as we speak, mindful of what happened the last time around when then little-known Alaska Governor Sarah Palin joined the Republican ticket. I'm joined now by Democratic strategist David Goodfriend, former Deputy Staff Secretary to President Clinton, and by Michael Dennehy, who is the former senior political advisor to the John McCain presidential campaign. Gentlemen, good morning.
Thank you.
Yeah, Michael, let me start with you. How much do you think the specter of Sarah Palin is hanging over this election process in 2012?
I'm probably in the minority. I don't think Sarah Palin was the disaster that other people think. I think she motivated a sector of the voters that John McCain hadn't motivated before. But clearly the process is what people think about with Sarah Palin, whether it was rushed or not, and that's what's going on right now. Mitt Romney started, I think, much earlier. That's going to clearly benefit him, and they've got people to look at, a lot of good people. But in the end, I don't think, media will talk about the comparison with Sarah Palin, but beyond that, I don't think voters care much.
Well, let's talk about some of the hot prospects, so to speak. David, we said at CPAC, 30% picked Marco Rubio. Chris Christie was far behind. He's been Marco Rubio on a lot of lists from the very beginning. What's the pros and cons here?
Well, what I found most significant coming out of that straw poll were the reasons given by the conservatives polled. And the number one reason with 32% was Marco Rubio has the best conservative values. Now, taken to its sort of logical conclusion, what that means is if candidate Romney were to listen to this part of the Republican Party and pick a candidate who had the most conservative values, what he's doing is he's pulling himself much further to the right at a time when I believe the Romney campaign is trying to argue to the American people that he's a centrist, that he's mainstream. And so, once again, I detect within the Republican Party a kind of tug of war between the conservatives who want a purist and someone pulling further to the right, and let's call them the pragmatists who just want to win the electoral map with the candidate who would get the most votes.
Well, let's talk about another conservative. Michael, unlike many Republicans who try to play down questions about possible consideration, Senator Rand Paul actually said it would be an honor to run with Romney. Do you think he's getting serious consideration?
I think he would get consideration, but let's make one thing clear. This is not going to be a pick that the Republican Party, the activists, conservatives make. This is a pick that Mitt Romney will do, and he will do alone. And the qualifications of that person, and probably as importantly, if not more importantly, will be the connection and the chemistry between those two people. That's critically important, especially with someone like Mitt Romney.
So in that room, it's the gut reaction of Mitt Romney.
No doubt about it. Conservative credentials here, credentials there, what part of the geography or the country they come from, ultimately isn't going to matter.
There's another popular conservative, Senator John Thune, said to be on Romney's short list. Pros and cons, David?
I've had the honor of meeting Senator Thune, and I think he's a very likable fellow, and I think he's a very compelling candidate. I also think he's very far to the right on the scale of the political spectrum, but I think, again, I agree with my Republican colleague here. What the Veep stakes gives us is the first insight really into the decision-making process and ability of this person who wants to be president. This is the first big decision. What does it say? It's almost as though it says more about the candidate at the top of the ticket and how they make a decision and why than it does about the person who would get the vice presidential slot, and that's what's so important about it. So, will Mitt Romney be pulled to the right by his right-wing faction? Will he decide from the gut, as I think John McCain did? I mean, that's really the insight we get out of this process.
Well, and I think there's also some interesting debate going on about timing, as you know, Michael, because there have been some reports that Mitt Romney's going to make the decision next month, well ahead of the convention. Would that be a good idea from your perspective?
I don't think it would hurt him to do it before the convention. However, that's kind of the energy of the convention is what really you want to be able to capitalize on when you are making that pick. And, there's other names that are being floated about. And one name that's being talked about most recently is Tim Pawlenty. And one of the things we think about with Mitt Romney is that he's not particularly risk-averse. And a safe pick would probably be good for him. Tim Pawlenty's been vetted as a presidential candidate, and I think he's someone that they're seriously considering looking more closely at and is someone that would be a great pick, fire up the convention, and really hit Obama and Biden head on.
Michael Dennehy, David Good, terrific conversation. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
This month is the